She was 29 and homeless. The kind of homeless people don't always notice at first. Not sleeping under bridges, not begging on sidewalks. No. Maya slept inside her old blue hatchback behind a closed grocery store near the edge of Belmore County. Every morning before sunrise, she folded the blanket carefully into the trunk so nobody would know. She washed her face in gas station bathrooms, kept her clothes inside plastic containers, and every night she listened to the quiet ticking sound coming from the dashboard while wondering how much longer the car would survive. 3 months earlier, she had lost everything: her apartment, her job, and the last person who still called her family. The only thing she had left was an old metal toolbox that once belonged to her grandfather. Most people would have sold it. Maya couldn't, because that toolbox still smelled faintly like engine oil and cedar wood, the same smell that filled her grandfather's repair shed when she was a little girl. Then one rainy afternoon, while scrolling through county auction listings inside a public library, she found something strange: an abandoned machine workshop. Price: $1. Nobody wanted it. The building had been condemned for years after an oil fire. The roof leaked, the windows were broken, and according to the listing, the underground oil pit beneath the workshop had never been fully inspected. People online joked that the place was cursed. Maya should have ignored it. But something about the photo bothered her. The workshop looked familiar, like she had seen it before. And against every logical thought in her exhausted mind, she bought it for $1. But what she didn't know was that something had been waiting beneath that oil pit for almost 40 years. And the moment she stepped inside that workshop, her life quietly began to change. Maya grew up in a small town where factory whistles still controlled people's lives. At 6 every morning, the steel plant siren echoed through Belmore County like an alarm clock for the entire town. Her grandfather, Walter Hale, used to say, "Machines have moods. You listen long enough, they tell you what hurts." Most people laughed when he said things like that. Maya never did. Walter owned a tiny repair shed behind his farmhouse. Nothing fancy, just peeling paint, shelves full of rusted parts, and old jazz music playing softly from a dusty radio. But to Maya, it felt magical. She remembered summer afternoons sitting on an upside-down bucket while her grandfather repaired engines beneath hanging work lights. The air always smelled like grease, rainwater, and hot metal. Walter's hands were rough, scarred, steady. He could fix almost anything: broken generators, farm equipment, old watches, even people in quiet ways, especially after Maya's father left. Her mother worked double shifts at a diner after that. Bills piled up, arguments became normal, but every weekend Maya escaped to Walter's shed. That little workshop became the only peaceful place in her childhood. Walter taught her things nobody else cared to teach anymore. How to identify a machine problem by sound alone, how old steel feels different from cheap modern metal, how silence inside a room can tell you something is wrong. People rush too. Much, he once told her while rebuilding a carburetor. That's why they miss important things. Maya never forgot that. Years later, after Walter died from lung disease, the family slowly fell apart. The farmhouse got sold. Her mother moved away with a man Maya barely knew. And the toolbox, the old dented steel toolbox, was the only thing Maya inherited. Inside, it were ordinary things: wrenches, bolts, screwdrivers, and one small folded photograph. Walter stood beside an old machine workshop with several workers. The sign above the building was partially hidden, but Maya could still read 2 faded words: Hale Industrial. As a child, she never asked about the photo. As an adult, she regretted that deeply. Maya tried hard to build a normal life after college. She studied industrial drafting, worked for a manufacturing supplier, and rented a small apartment. For a while, things seemed stable. Then Belmore changed. Factories closed one after another. Jobs disappeared. People moved away. The company she worked for downsized quietly at first, then aggressively, then suddenly. One Thursday afternoon, Maya was called into an office with gray walls and fluorescent lighting that buzzed softly overhead. The manager couldn't even look her in the eyes. "I'm sorry," he said. "Corporate decision." Just like that, 8 years disappeared. At first she thought she'd recover quickly, but months passed. Savings vanished. Bills stacked higher. Phone calls stopped coming. Friends slowly became strangers once she couldn't afford dinners or weekend trips anymore. Loneliness arrived. Quietly. Not dramatic, not loud, just empty. Then her mother passed away unexpectedly from a stroke. The funeral felt cold and distant. Most people there spoke to Maya like someone they vaguely remembered from years ago. Afterward, she sat alone, in her car holding her grandfather's toolbox in the passenger seat. That was the night she became homeless. Not officially, but emotionally. Because she realized there was nowhere left that truly felt like home. Weeks later, while sleeping in parking lots and surviving on cheap vending machine food, Maya began fixing small appliances for cash, coffee makers, fans, old lawn equipment. Word spread slowly. Some people paid her fairly, others didn't. Still, working with her hands made her feel close to Walter again, like maybe she hadn't completely disappeared yet. Then came the county auction listing. That old workshop. That strange, familiar building, the same one from the faded photograph. At first, Maya thought it was coincidence, but the more she stared at the image, the more unsettled she felt, especially when she noticed something odd near the back corner of the workshop floor. A large rectangular metal cover partially hidden beneath darkness. The oil pit. Rain followed Maya the entire drive to Belmore's industrial outskirts. The roads narrowed gradually. Streetlights disappeared. Abandoned warehouses lined the highway like empty skeletons. She almost turned around twice. The workshop sat beyond a rusted chain-link fence surrounded by dead weeds taller than her knees. The building looked worse in person, far worse. Broken. Windows. Collapsed gutters. Black stains crawling up brick walls. The sign above the entrance barely hung on. Hale Industrial Machine Works. Maya froze. Hale. Same name as her grandfather. Wind pushed softly through cracked openings in the walls, creating low, hollow sounds inside the building, almost like breathing. For several long seconds, she simply stood there staring. Then she unlocked the front door. The smell hit immediately. Old oil, wet wood, dust, rust, and something else buried deeper beneath it. The silence inside felt heavy. Not peaceful. Waiting. Water dripped steadily somewhere in the darkness. Plink, plink, plink. Maya moved carefully, with a flashlight. Old machines still sat abandoned beneath tarps. Tools covered workbenches exactly where workers had left them decades earlier. It didn't feel abandoned. It felt paused, like everyone had vanished mid-shift. Then her flashlight reached the center of the floor, the metal cover, the oil pit, and for the first time she noticed scratch marks around its edges. Fresh ones. That night Maya slept inside the workshop office wrapped in her coat. Wind rattled. Loose metal outside. Around midnight she heard something. A faint metallic sound beneath the floor. Not loud. Just clink. Then silence. Maya sat up immediately. Her flashlight trembled slightly in her hand. She listened. Nothing. Eventually, exhaustion pulled her back to sleep. But the next morning she inspected the oil pit more carefully. The rectangular steel cover was enormous, far too heavy to move alone. But around one edge she found newer bolts. Not original ones. Someone had replaced them years later. Why? County records claimed the pit had been sealed after the fire. Then why modify it afterward? The deeper Maya looked around the workshop, the stranger things became. One wall contained shelves of perfectly organized machine parts untouched by rust. A back storage room held old payroll documents ending abruptly in 1987. And inside a locked cabinet she discovered something unexpected. Another photograph of her grandfather, younger this time, standing beside 3 men in front of the same workshop. On the back, someone had written, "Keep it hidden until the right person returns." No signature, no explanation. Maya felt cold immediately because beneath the sentence was a small hand-drawn symbol. a circle with 3 lines through it. The exact same symbol carved into her grandfather's toolbox. Days passed. Maya began cleaning the workshop slowly, mostly because she had nowhere else to go. She patched broken windows with plastic sheets, swept years of dust, and organized old tools. The work calmed her. But strange things continued happening. Every afternoon around 4:15, the workshop made a deep groaning sound beneath the floor, always exactly once. One evening, while tracing old pipes behind the building, Maya discovered a second entrance partially buried beneath weeds, a narrow underground drainage tunnel. Cold air flowed from it, and faintly she smelled fresh oil. Impossible. The workshop had been abandoned for decades. That night, curiosity finally overwhelmed fear. Using ropes, gloves, and a flashlight taped to her jacket, Maya crawled inside the tunnel. Mud soaked through her jeans immediately. The tunnel narrowed sharply before opening beneath the workshop foundation. And there she saw it. Light. Tiny. Dim. Hidden through cracks above. The underside of the oil pit. Her heartbeat accelerated. The pit wasn't just a maintenance hole. There was space beneath it. An entire hidden chamber.